Okay, Reddit, strap in, because this is a story about sisterhood, resentment, and how my best intentions somehow blew up in my face. It all started when my husband and I welcomed our first daughter, Chloe, into the world. We were over the moon, completely smitten with this tiny human we had created. Chloe was our planned, our wanted, our absolutely adored little girl. We poured all our love and attention into her, creating a perfect little bubble of parenthood. We read all the parenting books, attended all the baby classes, and documented every milestone with the fervor of National Geographic photographers on a rare wildlife expedition. Chloe was our world, the center of our universe. We decorated her nursery with painstaking care, hung mobiles over her crib, and sang her lullabies until our voices were hoarse. Then, 10 short months later, life threw us a curveball. I was pregnant again. This time, it wasn't planned, it wasn't expected, and frankly, it wasn't exactly welcomed with open arms. Don't get me wrong, we were happy in a shocked, overwhelmed kind of way. But the reality of having two babies so close together, of juggling diapers and sleepless nights while still trying to maintain some semblance of sanity, was daunting to say the least. Our second daughter, Natalie, arrived, and our lives were instantly transformed into a chaotic symphony of cries, feeds, and diaper changes. We loved both our girls dearly, but the dynamic was undeniably different. Chloe, our firstborn, remained the center of our attention, the recipient of our most focused love and energy. Natalie, bless her heart, often got the short end of the stick. It wasn't intentional, not really. It was just that Chloe was, well, Chloe. She was our first, our experiment in parenthood, the one we had poured all our hopes and dreams into. And she was a demanding little thing, requiring constant attention, prone to meltdowns if her routine was disrupted even slightly. She was also, it must be said, a bit of a mama's girl, always clinging to me, always needing reassurance. Natalie, on the other hand, was more easygoing. She was content to be held, to observe the world around her with wide, curious eyes. She rarely cried, rarely fussed, and seemed perfectly happy to be passed around from relative to relative. She was, in many ways, the easier baby, the one who didn't demand as much attention, the one who seemed content to simply exist in the periphery. As a result, Natalie often ended up spending more time with my in-laws, who lived nearby and were always eager to babysit. It seemed like the perfect solution at the time. They got to dote on their granddaughter, and we got a much-needed break from the constant demands of two babies. We told ourselves that it was good for Natalie to have that extra attention, that it was building her independence and social skills. But looking back, I can see how that decision, made in a haze of sleep deprivation and parental overwhelm, planted the seeds of resentment that would grow and fester over the years. Natalie, though never explicitly expressing it, must have felt the disparity in attention, the subtle shift in our focus, and that, I realize now, was the beginning of the rift that would eventually tear our family apart. I remember one particular incident. Natalie was about 2 years old, and we were having a family picnic in the park. Chloe was running around, chasing butterflies and giggling, while Natalie sat quietly on a blanket, playing with a small toy. I was so focused on Chloe, making sure she didn't wander off, that I barely noticed Natalie. When it was time to leave, I scooped Chloe up in my arms, and we headed towards the car. It wasn't until we were halfway home that I realized Natalie wasn't with us. My heart sank as I rushed back to the park, my mind filled with terrifying images of what could have happened. I found her sitting on the same blanket, her small face streaked with tears, her tiny body shaking with sobs. "Mommy forgot me," she cried, her voice filled with a heartbreaking mixture of sadness and betrayal. I felt a pang of guilt so intense it almost took my breath away. I had failed her, neglected her, and in doing so, I had planted a seed of doubt in her young heart, a seed that would grow into a towering tree of resentment. That incident should have been a wake-up call, a warning sign that I needed to pay more attention to Natalie to make sure she felt loved and valued. But I was so caught up in the whirlwind of motherhood, the constant demands of two young children, that I brushed it aside, telling myself that it was just a phase, that she would forget all about it. But children don't forget. They internalize those moments of neglect, those subtle slights, those unspoken messages that they are somehow less important, less loved. And those internalized messages can shape their sense of self, their relationships, and their entire lives. I didn't realize it then, but that picnic in the park was a turning point, a moment when the fragile balance of our family dynamic shifted, setting in motion a chain of events that would lead to heartbreak, anger, and a deep, painful rift between my daughters and me. The early years with two daughters were a blur of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and a constant juggling act. Chloe, my firstborn, was everything I had ever dreamed of. She was a beautiful baby with big blue eyes and a smile that could melt your heart. She was also an easy baby, content to coo and gurgle in her crib, rarely fussing or demanding attention. Lily, on the other hand, was a different story. She was colicky, demanding, and prone to ear infections that kept us up all night. I loved her, of course, but I couldn't deny that I felt a stronger connection to Chloe, a bond that had been forged in those early months when it was just the two of us. As they grew older, the differences between my daughters became more pronounced. Chloe was outgoing, social, and always eager to please. She made friends easily, excelled in school, and was the star of her dance class. Lily, however, was more introverted, preferring the company of books and her own imagination to the hustle and bustle of social interaction. She was quiet, observant, and often seemed lost in her own thoughts. The dynamic between them was complex, a mix of sisterly love and simmering rivalry. Chloe, used to being the center of attention, often complained that I favored Lily. "You always take her side," she'd whine, her lower lip trembling. "You always let her get away with things." I tried to explain that it wasn't about favoritism, but about recognizing their individual needs. Chloe, with her outgoing personality and abundance of friends, didn't need as much attention as Lily, who often struggled to connect with her peers and seemed more vulnerable to criticism. But Lily didn't see it that way. She felt neglected, misunderstood, and resentful of the attention Chloe received. She would often lash out, acting out in school, refusing to do her chores, and generally making life more difficult for everyone. "Why do you always make things so hard?" I'd ask, my frustration mounting. "Why can't you just be happy for your sister?" But Lily couldn't be happy for Chloe. She couldn't understand why her sister was always the favorite, why she always seemed to get what she wanted, why she was always the center of attention. The tension between them grew, a constant undercurrent of sibling rivalry that threatened to disrupt the harmony of our family. I tried to mediate, to encourage them to be kind to each other, to appreciate each other's strengths, but my efforts often fell on deaf ears. And then the incident happened. The incident that would shatter the fragile peace in our home and leave a lasting scar on our family. It started with a boy, a handsome new student who had caught the eye of both my daughters. Chloe, confident and outgoing, had no qualms about flirting with him, making her interest clear. Lily, however, was more hesitant, her shyness preventing her from expressing her feelings. One afternoon after school, the tension between them boiled over. Chloe, fueled by jealousy and a sense of entitlement, accused Lily of trying to steal her boyfriend. Lily, hurt and angry, denied the accusation, but Chloe wouldn't listen. The argument escalated, their voices rising, their words growing more and more hurtful. And then, in a moment of blind rage, Chloe lashed out, striking Lily across the face. The sound of the slap echoed through the house, a sharp crack that shattered the illusion of our happy family. I rushed into the room, my heart pounding with fear and anger. Chloe stood there, her face pale, her hand trembling, the realization of what she had done dawning on her. Lily, her cheek red and swollen, her eyes filled with tears, glared at her sister with a mixture of hurt and betrayal. I tried to calm them down, to mediate, to understand what had happened, but the damage had been done. The trust between my daughters had been broken, the fragile peace in our home shattered, and the consequences of that fateful afternoon would reverberate through our lives for years to come. Part 3. The Fracture. The incident with Chloe and Lily, the slap heard round the world as I bitterly called it, ripped our family apart. It wasn't just a sisterly squabble. It was a full-blown meltdown that brought the authorities knocking at our door. Lily, in her hurt and anger, had called Child Protective Services, reporting the incident with a chillingly detailed account of Chloe's abuse. The CPS investigation was a nightmare. Social workers with their probing questions and suspicious glances invaded our home, turning our lives upside down. They interviewed Chloe and Lily separately, scrutinized every bruise and scratch, and even questioned our parenting methods. I felt violated, exposed, my every move judged and analyzed. I was furious with Lily. How could she do this to us, to her own family? Didn't she understand the consequences of her actions? Didn't she care that she was putting our family under a microscope, jeopardizing our stability, our reputation? But beneath the anger, a deep sadness gnawed at me. I had failed as a mother. I had failed to create a harmonious environment for my daughters, failing to foster a loving bond between them. I had allowed the rivalry to fester, the resentment to grow, until it exploded in a way that none of us could have anticipated. Chloe was devastated. The guilt and shame of her actions weighed heavily on her, her once bright eyes clouded with sadness and fear. She retreated into herself, her grades plummeted, and her once bubbly personality dimmed. I tried to comfort her, to reassure her that it wasn't her fault, that she was a good person who had made a mistake, but my words felt hollow, my reassurances inadequate. Lily, meanwhile, seemed strangely detached. She showed no remorse for her actions, no regret for the chaos she had unleashed. She seemed almost relieved, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The tension in our house was palpable, a thick fog of suspicion and resentment that permeated every interaction. Family dinners, once a time for laughter and connection, became strained and silent. Chloe and Lily avoided each other, their shared bedroom a battleground of unspoken accusations and simmering anger. My husband, bless his heart, tried to be the voice of reason, the mediator, the peacemaker, but his efforts were futile. The damage had been done, the trust broken, the family fractured, and then Lily made a decision that would further tear us apart. She announced that she wanted to move in with her grandparents, my parents. She claimed that she needed space, that she couldn't live under the same roof as Chloe, that she needed a fresh start. I was heartbroken. The thought of losing Lily, of her choosing to live with my parents instead of us, felt like a rejection, a confirmation of my failure as a mother. But I also knew that I couldn't force her to stay, that she needed time and space to heal, to process her own emotions. So I agreed, with a heavy heart and a lingering sense of dread. Lily packed her bags, her face betraying no emotion as she said goodbye. I watched her go, my heart aching with a mixture of sadness and guilt. The house felt empty without her, the silence deafening. Chloe, though relieved to have her own space, was also saddened by her sister's departure. The rivalry that had consumed them had also been a bond, a connection that now seemed irrevocably broken. Life went on, but the shadow of the incident lingered. The CPS case was eventually closed, but the scars remained. Chloe and I slowly rebuilt our relationship, but the trust between us was fragile, easily shattered by the slightest disagreement. And Lily, well, she seemed to disappear from our lives. She rarely called. Her visits were infrequent and awkward, and her conversations strained. She had built a new life for herself, a life that didn't include us. I tried to reach out, to bridge the gap, but my efforts were met with resistance, a polite but distant response that made it clear that she wasn't ready to forgive, to forget, or to reconnect. The guilt gnawed at me, a constant reminder of my failure as a mother. I had allowed the rivalry between my daughters to fester, the resentment to grow, until it exploded in a way that none of us could have anticipated. And now, I was paying the price of a fractured family, a broken bond, and a daughter who had become a stranger. Leaving the hospital was a surreal experience. The world seemed brighter, the colors more vibrant, the sounds more distinct. I felt like I had been given a second chance, a new lease on life. My family welcomed me home with open arms, their faces etched with a mix of relief and gratitude. Michael and Jessica fussed over me, making sure I was comfortable and had everything I needed. I felt a wave of love for them, a deep appreciation for their unwavering support. But life after my near-death experience wasn't without its challenges. I struggled with fatigue, headaches, and a lingering sensitivity to light and noise. My body was healing, but it was a slow process, a constant reminder of the trauma I had endured. Returning to work as a therapist was both rewarding and challenging. I felt a deeper connection with my patients, a greater understanding of their fears and anxieties. My near-death experience has given me a unique perspective on life, death, and the human condition. But I also found myself struggling to put my experience into words. How could I possibly convey the profound sense of peace, the unconditional love, the glimpse of eternity with mere language? I realized that words were only a small part of the healing process. My presence, my empathy, and my willingness to listen were just as important. I learned to use my experience to create a safe space for my patients, a place where they could explore their own beliefs and fears without judgment. My near-death experience had also deepened my faith. I felt a stronger connection to God, a greater understanding of His love and mercy. I found comfort in prayer and meditation, seeking guidance and wisdom in the quiet moments. I also felt a renewed appreciation for the natural world. I spent more time outdoors, hiking in the mountains, listening to the birds sing, and marveling at the beauty of creation. I felt a deep sense of connection to all living things, a sense of belonging to something greater than myself. My near-death experience had taught me that life is precious and fleeting. I learned to cherish each moment, to appreciate the simple things, to live with intention. I sought to make a positive impact on the world, to spread love and kindness wherever I went. I shared my story with anyone who would listen, hoping to inspire others to live their lives to the fullest. I spoke at churches, community groups, and even on the radio. I wrote articles and blog posts, sharing my experiences and insights. My near-death experience had not only changed my life, but also given me a new purpose. I was no longer just Jenny Spector, the therapist. I was Jenny Spector, the woman who had died and come back to life with a message of hope and love for the world. And I was determined to share that message with as many people as possible. Years passed. The silence from Lily stretched from months to years. We celebrated Chloe's milestones, graduations, awards, scholarships, with a bittersweet tinge, a constant reminder of the missing piece in our family puzzle. I tried to keep tabs on Lily through my parents, who maintained a strained but civil relationship with her, but the updates were sparse and often filled with thinly veiled criticism. "Lily's doing well in school," my mother would report, her voice laced with a hint of disapproval, "but she's still quite independent." Independent. It was the code word for rebellious, ungrateful, not like Chloe. I longed to hear more, to know what truly made Lily tick, to understand the woman she was becoming. But the wall between us remained, a barrier built on years of hurt and misunderstanding. Then, the news arrived. Lily was getting married. The announcement came not from Lily herself, but from my mother, her voice a mixture of surprise and thinly veiled resentment. "Lily's getting married," she announced, her tone implying that Lily had somehow committed a transgression. "She's marrying a musician. A musician." The unspoken implication hung in the air like a bad smell. Unstable, unreliable, not good enough for our Lily. I, however, felt a surge of joy. My little sister, the one who had always marched to the beat of her own drum, was finding happiness, creating a life for herself, a life that was undoubtedly different from the one we had envisioned for her, but a life that was hers nonetheless. I immediately picked up the phone, eager to congratulate her, to express my happiness, to finally bridge the gap that had separated us for so long. But as I dialed her number, a wave of anxiety washed over me. Would she even answer? Would she welcome my congratulations, or would she reject them? Just as she had rejected so much of our family's love and support. The phone rang and rang, each unanswered tone amplifying my apprehension. Finally, just as I was about to give up, Lily answered. Her voice was cautious, hesitant, as if she were unsure who was on the other end of the line. "Lily? It's me, Sarah," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I heard the news about your wedding. Congratulations." There was a long pause, a silence filled with the weight of unspoken words and unresolved emotions. And then, Lily's voice, cool and distant, cut through the tension. "Thank you," she said, her tone polite, but devoid of warmth. I pressed on, eager to break through the ice, to rekindle the connection we had once shared. "I'm so happy for you," I said, my voice filled with genuine emotion. "I'd love to be there to celebrate with you." Another pause, this one shorter, but still filled with an unspoken tension. "Actually," Lily said, her voice now laced with a hint of steel, "I'm not inviting Chloe." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Chloe, my firstborn, my pride and joy, the one who had always been the center of our world, was being excluded from her own sister's wedding. The injustice of it all, the unfairness, the blatant disregard for family ties, filled me with a rage that I could barely contain. "Lily, how could you?" I exclaimed, my voice rising in anger. "She's your sister. You can't just exclude her from your wedding." "She's the one who excluded herself," Lily retorted, her voice now filled with the bitterness that had festered for years. "She's the one who made my life a living hell. She's the one who turned you against me. I don't want her there, and I don't need her in my life." I tried to reason with her, to appeal to her sense of family, to remind her of the love and support we had always offered, but she was adamant. Chloe was not welcome at her wedding, and then the final blow. "Actually," Lily said, her voice cold and resolute, "I'm not inviting any of you. I don't want the drama, the tension, or the reminders of everything I've been through. This is my day, my new beginning, and I want to celebrate it with people who love and support me unconditionally." The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor. I stared at it, my mind reeling, my heart shattered. Lily, my own daughter, had rejected us, cast us out of her life, just as we had once cast her out of ours. The pain was unbearable, a sharp, piercing agony that ripped through my soul. I had lost her, perhaps forever, and in that moment, I realized that the blame lay squarely on my shoulders. I had failed her as a mother, failed to protect her, and failed to nurture the bond between my daughters. And now, I was paying the price of a broken family, a shattered dream, and a daughter who had become a stranger. The day of Lily's wedding dawned bright and sunny, a cruel mockery of the storm brewing inside me. We had decided to attend Vicky's housewarming party instead of the wedding, a decision that felt like a betrayal to Lily, but also a necessary act of solidarity with our eldest daughter. I tried to convince myself that it was the right thing to do, that Lily had made her choice and we had to respect it. But deep down, I knew I was just trying to protect myself from further rejection. The party was a lively affair, filled with laughter, music, and the joyful chatter of friends and family. Vicky was radiant, her new home a testament to her hard work and success. I watched her, surrounded by her friends, her laughter echoing through the rooms, and a pang of longing struck me. This was the kind of carefree joy I had always envisioned for both my daughters, a joy that seemed forever out of reach for Lily. I tried to push aside the nagging feeling of guilt to focus on celebrating Vicky's achievements, but Lily's absence cast a long shadow over the festivities. Every time the doorbell rang, every time a new guest arrived, I couldn't help but scan the faces, hoping against hope that Lily would miraculously appear, that she would forgive me, that we could somehow mend the broken pieces of our family. But Lily didn't come. And as the day wore on, the weight of my decision pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a mistake, that I had chosen one daughter over the other, that I had further widened the rift that already existed between them. Later that evening, as the party wound down and the guests began to depart, I received a text message from my sister-in-law. It was a photo of Lily at her wedding, radiant in her white dress, her smile tentative yet hopeful, but it was the caption that hit me like a punch to the gut. Lily's grandparents walked her down the aisle. Such a beautiful moment. My heart sank. Lily had chosen her grandparents, my in-laws, to give her away, to fill the role that should have been mine. It was a clear message, a silent accusation that spoke volumes about the depth of her hurt and resentment. She had chosen them over me, her own mother. I felt a surge of anger, a sense of injustice. How could she do this to me? Didn't she understand the sacrifices I had made, the love I had always felt for her, even if I hadn't always shown it in the best way? Didn't she realize that my actions, though misguided, were always motivated by a desire to protect her, to provide for her, to give her the best possible life? But the anger quickly subsided, replaced by a wave of sadness and regret. I realized that Lily's actions, though hurtful, were a direct result of my own failings as a mother. I had allowed the favoritism, the unintentional neglect, to fester, creating a wound that had never fully healed. I thought back to all the times I had prioritized Vicky, the times I had overlooked Lily's needs, the times I had dismissed her feelings. I saw the pattern of my behavior, the subtle ways in which I had contributed to her pain. I remembered the Christmases where Vicky's pile of presents dwarfed Lily's, the school events I had missed because Vicky had a dance recital, and the countless times I had praised Vicky's achievements while overlooking Lily's quiet accomplishments. And I knew that I had to do something to make things right. I couldn't undo the past, but I could try to build a better future, a future where both my daughters felt loved, valued, and accepted for who they were. The next day, I called Lily. My voice trembled as I spoke, the words catching in my throat. I apologized for my mistakes, for the hurt I had caused, and for the years of unintentional neglect. I told her that I loved her, that I always had, and that I wanted nothing more than to rebuild our relationship. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest, unsure of what to expect. Finally, Lily spoke, her voice soft but firm. She acknowledged the pain of the past, the resentment that had built up over the years. She spoke of feeling invisible, unimportant, and constantly overshadowed by Vicky. She spoke of the loneliness of being the forgotten daughter, the one who was always expected to be okay, to be independent, to not need as much attention. Listening to her words, my heart ached with guilt and regret. I had failed her in so many ways, and I didn't know if I could ever truly make amends. But I had to try. I told her about my own struggles, my insecurities, my fear of not being a good enough mother. I explained that my favoritism towards Vicky wasn't intentional, but a misguided attempt to protect her, to compensate for her own challenges. Lily listened patiently, her voice softening as I spoke. She acknowledged that she understood that she didn't blame me entirely, but she also made it clear that she needed time, that she needed to heal, that she needed to figure out how to move forward. We agreed to meet for lunch the following week, a tentative first step towards rebuilding our bond. The conversation was awkward at first, filled with hesitant pauses and unspoken emotions. But as we talked, the tension eased, and we began to reconnect, to share our lives, our hopes, and our dreams. It would take time, patience, and a lot of effort to fully heal the wounds of the past. But I was committed to doing the work, to being a better mother, a better listener, a better sister. I had learned a valuable lesson, a lesson about the power of love, forgiveness, and the enduring strength of family bonds. And as I looked at Lily, her eyes shining with a newfound hope, I knew that we would find our way back to each other, that we would create a future where both my daughters felt loved, valued, and cherished, not just for who they were, but for the unique individuals they were destined to become.